Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Season 13, Episode 18, overall 678 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by our friends at Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership, located at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out their website, barrycullen.com, for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, along with their great selection of all-electric vehicles and Cadillac vehicles as well. You can call the dealership at 519-824-0210 and tell them Chris Palme sent you, or you can email them at info@barrycullen.com. Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership has been family-run and operated here in the city of Guelph since 1969, and they have been a proud sponsor of this show for the last 3.5 years. Before we bring on our guest tonight, guys, this Friday in Fergus, Ontario, classic rock fans are set for an unforgettable night when FMJ, Foreigner Meets Journey, Canada's only tribute band to two of rock's greatest bands, Foreigner and Journey, kicks off their 2026 theater tour at the Grand Theater in Fergus, Ontario this Friday, March 20th, 2026 at 8 p.m. Eastern. I will be there as freelance media. Events details, FMJ, Foreigner Meets Journey venue at the Grand Theater in Fergus, by the way. And it's this Friday at 8 p.m. And you can get your tickets. The tickets are $65 a ticket, and the ticket link is secure1.tickhub.com/TCW Fergus. I have it on the graphics as well. So I will be interviewing Michael Pelletier, the lead singer for the band on Friday night in Fergus, and I'm looking forward to it. It's a great tribute band to Foreigner and Jersey. So if you love those two bands, you love music, check out the Fergus Grand Theater this Friday night. Get your tickets now, and I have the link down here on my ticker. As we wrap, not as we're, I'm going to reword this again, guys. I made a boo-boo here. As we bring on our special guest tonight, this is his a record 11th time on this show. I've known him for, I believe, almost 7 years now, and he knows the National Lacrosse League as well as anybody, and he's also the manager at Coolbet Canada, and he's a huge sports fan too, and a Buffalo Bills fan too, but we won't hold that against him. We're going to bring on NLL Analyst with TSN and the Halifax Thunderbirds, Pat Gregoire. Good evening, Pat. How are you?
Chris, good to be back, buddy. It's been a little too long, but I'm glad to hear I still have my championship belt, as most appearances on this program.
Yes. My friend in Detroit, Greg's catching up to you, Greg. You know, he's a really good guy, and he's covered Detroit sports for many years.
Yeah, absolutely. I've listened to a few of those episodes with him. You guys have a pretty good chemistry, and yeah, he has quite the finger on the pulse of Detroit sports, which right now, Chris, got to be, there's got to be pretty good vibes down in Mo City. Just considering Motown with, I know the Red Wings have kind of fallen off, but the Pistons, things are looking up for a few of those franchises, and we'll see what holds for the Lions.
Yeah, the Pistons kind of didn't play great yesterday. I'll give credit to the Raptors. The Raptors, I give them credit. The Pistons just, I think, sometimes play down to the teams they're playing against. But the Pistons, hey, I'll be honest with you. I knew they were going to be improved, but I didn't think they'd be 48-19 right now. Last year, they won 44 games. And this year, I'm like, okay, we'll improve and get to 50 wins. Optimistically, and this team still has a chance at 60 wins. So right now what the Pistons are doing is way ahead of schedule from my perspective and a lot of people's.
Yeah, I think it's from a lot of people's perspective, and I would even say maybe even from the organization. But you mentioned just playing down to the competition. I feel like that's kind of unfortunately the way that the NBA is now. A lot teams get up for those big games, but sometimes some of the lower talent, or even just we it's been a while since we've got to the debate of load management, but the this time of the regular season before we get into that playoff push can kind of go through a lull. The dog days of the NBA season.
basketball.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. But you don't see that as much in the National Lacrosse League because you know why? I think it's because it's an 18-game schedule and only the top 8 out of 14 teams make the playoffs. And I admit the Bandits did have one of those games this year against the Philadelphia Wings. And if they don't get home court or advantage in the first round in that one-game series, you can look back at that loss to Philadelphia. I believe they blew a 3 or 4 goal lead against the Wings and lost that game by 1 goal. That game, I think, still could hurt them at the end.
They're hopefully, with this run that they're on, and I'm sure we'll talk about the Bandits quite a bit here this evening, but winners of 4 of their last 5, the only loss during that stretch against Vancouver. They're starting to play a lot better, kind of similar to what we've expected out of Bandits ball over the past few years. But Chris, you are right, some uncharacteristic losses in that stretch of 4, but I think the real wake-up moment was that loss at home to a lesser program in Philadelphia. And you mentioned it. They had the low, and then they came back and took the victory again. But that's when they did drop. And I think there was a lot of soul searching in that locker room, a lot of looking in the mirror. And they haven't looked back since that moment. They are a completely different team. And I think they are poised to host a playoff game. If they don't, 100% you can look at that game. But even if they don't host a round 1 playoff game, I wouldn't write this team off by any stretch of the imagination, just considering how difficult the remaining schedule is. They still do play a lot of really good teams, but I think the Buffalo Bandits are back to being one of the top contenders to win the title again.
To be honest, I think they've played better on the road than they have at home this year. But the Colorado game, the key to that game was the Bandits got off to a good start, because there's been games where the Bandits just got off to terrible starts, just didn't look good. And they jumped right on Colorado. And then Colorado, to their credit, they got themselves back in the game. But really, for the most part, the Bandits really controlled that game. I would say 75% of the time. And I think that was an important win too, because they got hammered by Colorado a couple months ago, 20-9. To me, that was the worst loss they've ever seen the Bandits have. And I'm sure that's one of the worst in team history as well. So that was important, that game. But I think the game against Saskatchewan, they led that game most of the way. And then Saskatchewan tied it up. And then in overtime, which Matt Vince made a couple big saves, and then Josh Burns' overtime goal, that can be a turning point in their turnaround in this season as well. Because if they lose that game, Steve Dietrich probably does not make the trade for Joe Resiteris and Tyler Hendricks, the defender from Vegas, I believe.
Not only does he not make those trades, Chris, I think he's considering trading off some of the assets to get a little bit younger, and some of those expiring contracts, some of the players that we might not see next year due to retiring. I mean, he told myself, I believe it was Matt Cullen was on the call as well, and Ashley Docking. Steve Dietrich said, listen, we have to go 2-0 this week. And I'm talking about the Saskatchewan-Toronto weekend that they had where they did go 2-0. He said, we got to go 2-0. 1-1 is just as the same as 0-2. And if that does happen, I have to have some tough conversations with some players on this team who have been around this team for a long time, who have been championship caliber players that have been on these 2 or 3 championships. So he didn't have to have those conversations, and all of a sudden those 2 wins turned them into sellers, into buyers, and they go with the trade deadline. They get Joe Resiteris, they get a young great athlete in Tyler Hendricks, and now all of a sudden this team is win now, and they should be as back-to-back champions. But as you know, Chris, this winning doesn't always happen. It's dynasties don't last forever. Championship runs have to finish at some point. And that's why Steve Dietrich also has to be aware. Yes, he wants to win right now. Yes, Coach Tavares wants to win right now, but they also have to be aware that they have to start building for the future as well. I think they've done a good job while still having that win now mentality at the top of their minds.
Speaking of future, Matt Vince, he hasn't had the greatest of years, but in big games where they absolutely need to win, he comes through. And you know what? I get some social media. Oh yeah, if it was a younger goalie, oh, he's just in a slump. But because he's over 40, he's done, he's overaged. And it's like, don't judge him by his age, man. And when it's time to perform in the big games, Matt Vince is one of the greatest, if not the GOAT of National Lacrosse League goalies.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who say he's the greatest goalie of all time. There's a lot of people who make a great case that he's maybe one of the greatest players of all time, with the John Tavareses, with the Gary Gates of the world, because when you look at his championships, he's the only player to have a three-peat with two different franchises. He did it with Rochester, and then now he's in the midst of it with Buffalo. 100%, Chris. I agree. He is he's the greatest goaltender of all time in my mind. He is one of the greatest players of all time in my mind. But when it comes to right now, through a full 18 game stretch, is Matt Vince the best goalie on the planet? No, not anymore. He isn't. But in a 1 game elimination, for all the marbles, and I had to pick one goalie, I'm having a hard time not picking him. I know there's some great goaltenders like Christian Del Bianco of Vancouver, Dylan Ward of Colorado, Brett Dobson of Georgia. These are all great goalies, but when push comes to shove, when you need a win, when you need a big save, when it's, everything's on the line, how could you not go with Matt Vince? And he started playing playoff lacrosse in that last weekend of February. His mentality of playoffs started then, and he's been phenomenal since that moment.
Speaking of Steve Dietrich, the general manager of the Bandits since 2012, last week I was doing some public speaking at a local high school in Kitchener-Waterloo, and one of the guys saw my Bandits media pass I was showing the students. He goes, "Yeah, my uncle's the general manager of the Buffalo Bandits. Have you ever heard of him, Steve Dietrich?" And I'm like, "Yes." And it's like, what are the odds of that? What are the odds?
World.
And then I ran into a young girl that's a student in a high school in Kitchener, and she does dancing for the Rock at halftime for their games as well. So I was actually I was career talking, education talking, but I ended up talking about the National Lacrosse League with some of the students too.
It's a small world, Chris. It really is. You never know who you're going to bump into, and you never know who you might know who knows someone. And that's why it's so important to build those relationships. That's why it's so important to be polite and kind and not bash people, because you never know who might be listening. But, that is hilarious. And, Steve Dietrich, in Kitchener-Waterloo, when it comes to the lacrosse community, there's not too many bigger personalities or bigger figures than Steve Dietrich. Maybe the only other bigger one would be his best player on his team in Dane Smith. Yeah.
By the way, Dietrich's been the general manager of the Buffalo Bandits since 2012. I would love to have him on my show, because I would love to ask him how he transitioned from being a player or goalie into being a GM. And I think he's probably the best GM in the National Lacrosse League.
I think right now it's Derek Keenan is number one, just because of longevity and what he's been able to do over the last many years, with Saskatchewan, with Edmonton, with all his other teams. Portland, I believe, was one of the other teams that he coached for a very long time, and general managed. But right behind him is Steve Dietrich. And I think for a guy that a lot of people talk about how great of a team he's built, I still don't think he gets enough credit for how good of a general manager he is. A lot of people just say, he got lucky. He got Dane Smith and then drafted Josh Byrne and Ian McKay, and kind of the rest has fallen, and free agents are always willing to go there. But you look through the roster, Chris, the majority of those players are drafted. It's not a ton of free agents that he's brought in. And it really is a built team. And being a big sports fan, not just of lacrosse, but football, hockey, basketball, you name it, having a lot of superstars under a roster. And I know we are just getting into the salary cap era of the NLL, but still, to have these players buy in, to agree to contracts, to have some guys on lesser contracts, to have everyone playing a role. And that obviously is a little bit of John Tavares, but a lot of it's Steve Dietrich as well. for him to have all these superstars in the same lineup and being able to keep them up until this year, finally, it was time that some other guys decided that they would take another opportunity. He's done a tremendous job keeping this team here together. And, he was very candid with us saying that, he struggles with being loyal and also worrying about what's the best for the future. And that's those conversations that he thought he was going to have if they lost to Saskatchewan or Toronto a couple of weeks ago. He didn't. So he gets to kind of at least one more run with the majority of this group. And then next year, Chris, I think you're going to see a lot of a different Buffalo team. But when you have Josh Byrne, when you have Dane Smith, when those two guys are on your roster, you always should be in a championship mindset. So I don't think it's going to be a rebuild over the next couple of years for the Buffalo Bandits. It'll be more of a retool.
Pat, this is my personal opinion, and I really feel that this is probably going to be Matt Vince's last year. I'll probably be wrong about it, but I feel this might be his last year. And I was surprised when they trade Steve Oleman away as well, because I don't know who the Bandits' successor is. Not that I'm trying to get rid of Matt Vince right now, but you do have to start thinking about the future in that as well.
No doubt, Chris. And I kind of was surprised as well when I saw Steve Orleman get traded to Toronto. And I was watching your episode with Steve Bermel, and he explained it pretty well. So, it's just they had 4 goalies. They had 4 goalies on the roster. You have youngsters in Shognosh, who they just drafted this year in the first round. You have Konstantopoulos, who is now the backup. They drafted a couple of years ago. So those are their 2 goalies that are going to be vying for that next man up. We'll say Steve Orleman. Don't think he was really seen as the heir apparent to Matt Vince, so that's why they were able to part ways with him. But I don't know if they know exactly what they're doing. I don't know if that's a case where they believe that one of those young guys are going to be able to step in right away and become that goalie. And right now, the backup is Evan Konstantopoulos. This is a guy that played junior lacrosse last summer with the Orangeville Northmen last year in a Minto Cup. I don't think he's ready to take over, and that is some big shoes to fill in for Matt Vince. I don't think that's right. And then, like I mentioned with Shognosh, he's still he's so young. He's only 18. He's the goalie of the future. So I think there needs to be a bit of a stopgap. And I think this is where Steve Dietrich's going to have to get creative, whether it's a trade in the offseason, whether it's a free agents signing, although there's not an abundance of free agents out there that are goaltenders. Warren Hill out of Halifax is one of them. Maybe it's there, but maybe it's a trade. That's going to be interesting. And who better than to decide and kind of have a pulse on goaltender than Steve Dietrich, a Hall of Fame goaltender himself. I'm sure he's going to figure it out. I'm sure he's got a few guys circled who he's going to go for. But you're right. Maybe we hear Matt Vince says, hey, you know what? We won 4 in a row. Let's say they win 4. And he says, you know what? Let's make it 5. I can't hang them up yet. Maybe that's the case. But I'm in the mindset of you, Chris, regardless if they win 4 or if they fall short and the dynasty, quote unquote, dynasty is over, I think this will be the last year of Matt Vince. And I think that Steve Dietrich is going to have his hands full this summer deciding who's going to tend twine for Buffalo next year.
When Matt does hang them up, whether it's this year or next year, do you feel he'll make a good head coach or a goalie coach? Do you feel coaching is in his background in the future?
Coaching certainly will be in the background in the future. I think just with where he is with his family, I would not be surprised if he takes a few years off to spend a little more time with his family. He's a big family man, but would not be surprised shortly thereafter if he did take a position. I could certainly see him right away. I mean, his brother Eric Vince is on the bench for the Buffalo Bandits as well. If he decided that was it. But yeah, no doubt. He's a teacher as well by trade. That's his day job. So teaching is obviously something that, translates well with a lot of these coaches. John Tavares, he's a teacher. Glenn Clark was a teacher as well. We see a lot of these coaches use some of their life skills with teaching to be a great coach. And then from their previous experiences with lacrosse, that's where the IQ, the leadership, where it comes together. So I think Matt Vince would be a great candidate to be a coach Obviously, at jumping right into being a head coach right away would be extremely difficult, but I could see multiple teams offering him a job to be a defensive coordinator to start, and then who knows what happens after that, because you've watched a lot of Buffalo Bandits games over the last couple of years. After the Buffalo Bandits get scored on, immediately right away, him and it's usually Steve Priolo or Nick Weiss are right beside him, looking up at the jumbotron, and they're breaking it down and seeing what's going on, what it is. At morning shoot-arounds or in film, he's usually, from what I've heard, I've seen it at shoot-around, I've heard it from film, one of the most vocal guys out there, and he dictates and decides, okay, this is what these guys are doing, because he watches so much film. He has, stacks on stacks on stacks of these notebooks of shooting charts, where these guys shoot, what their tendencies are. Yep. He's such a cerebral goaltender that he would be such an asset to have on the bench, just because of the mind that he has, never mind his teaching ability and his leadership on top of that.
And they beat Colorado without Nick Weiss and In McKay. Those are two valuable players. They unfortunately were not able to play in that game. And also, they were missing Chris Kluche and Chase Frazier, too. This team, as you know, Pat, in professional sports, when you win championships, you can't keep everybody, and they lost Connor Fields a couple years ago to Rochester, and then Kluche and Frazier, too. I do think earlier in the season, they did miss those two presences in the lineup. 100%. And then to beat Colorado, even at home without McKay and Nick Weiss, that was huge too, because those guys are valuable players on that team.
Yeah, and they didn't have Dylan Robinson in the lineup as well, who's one of their up and coming stud defensemen. He was listed as a healthy scratch. From what I've heard, it was more of a last minute injury that may have happened, or I know he was dealing with some injuries, so not having him in the lineup. But I kind of want to go on off of that. We've talked about Chris Kluche and Chase Frazier, and I agree with you. It did take them a long time for life after playing with those guys. First and foremost, Chris Kluche, I don't think a lot of people realize how much of the dirty work he did for Josh Byrne to get him open, setting those hard picks, opening up lanes, getting rid of traffic. And then even also just the skill that he has, the two-man game, those two guys, their chemistry together on the right side with Fraser. Yes, obviously you miss him with the chemistry that they have with Dane Smith, but it's also the void that he leaves. Then everyone else on that side has to step up and has to play a different role and different responsibilities. And I think that was also an issue. They had Mike Triolo in, they end up releasing him. Lucas Nielsen comes in, they end up trading him to Philly. They didn't really find that balance on the right side. So I do think they missed those void. And I'll throw another name out there, Justin Martin.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
On the back end, they have certainly missed him. He is the most underrated defender, in lacrosse, in my opinion. He is the best shutdown, or was the best shutdown defender in the game. Any night you could ask the Buffalo Bandits when they're game planning on what they want to do. Say if they're playing Rochester and Connor Fields comes in. Say if it's the Halifax Thunderbirds and Clark Peterson's coming in. Doesn't matter if it's a lefty or a righty. They were throwing Justin Martin on that player, and most nights he was keeping them silent. And you wouldn't really hear John Gertler on the broadcast talk about him all too often, or when you're looking down at the stats, it doesn't really jump off the page. But an old adage goes, a good defenseman, if you don't hear about them, that's a good thing. And that was certainly a good thing with Justin Martin. Just so sound, so I know Steve Bermel calls him the silent assassin. On TSN, we were calling him a human eraser because he just erased the other team's best player, like a shutdown cornerback in football. That's how I saw him. Once he locked onto a guy, other teams had to figure out a way to either A, get Justin Martin away from him, or B, who's stepping up and putting up the points for him, because that's just how valuable he was on the back end.
Any chance possibly next year he might get the bug to play lacrosse again, or do you think now he's done?
Listen, I mean, he's in phenomenal shape. He's, I think, maybe only mid-30s, or not even at that point, 33, 34, somewhere in there. I heard it's due to personal reasons, just with like work commitment, job, all that kind of stuff, family. I wouldn't count it out. I certainly wouldn't count it. I know Steve Dietrich's not counting. I'm pretty sure he's probably picked up the phone and texted him and say, hey, you want to come back? I wouldn't rule it out. This is not any inside information that I have. I would not rule it out, but, I wouldn't hold your breath. But if come July 1st, we see, that he signs a 1-year deal with Buffalo, I wouldn't be entirely shocked at all.
Pat, a majority of the contracts, they're not guaranteed, obviously, but are they mostly 1-year contracts? And also, is there a limit on how long you can sign a contract with a National Lacrosse League team?
So it used to be 10 years. I'd have to check under the current CBA. I think it's up to 5 now. But so basically some of the contract rules is for an entry level deal. So if it's your first contract, if you're a rookie, it's a max or a minimum 3 years just to give some, stability to the rookie. But here's the thing, you can get released and then you can sign wherever you are. But it has to be that 3-year contract for rookies. After that can be 1, 2, 3, 4. We see a lot of, especially over the last couple of years, 1-year deals just because of the uncertainty with the CBA. Now that the CBA signed, we still saw some 1-year deals because, as I mentioned earlier, Chris, this year there still is the luxury tax for the cap. Next year it goes to a full hard cap where you cannot go over, you cannot overspend. So that's why we saw a lot of players still sign to that 1-year deal, just because next year they're going to have to figure out a way how they can keep those players under the cap. Hence why we saw Chris Kluche and Chase Fraser decide to move on, other opportunities where they can play bigger roles, where they can also make more money, because as we know, Dane Smith and Josh Byrne take up a really big chunk of the salary cap. All the more reason why Steve Dietrich wants to get younger in the next couple of years, because he's going to have to find cheaper players out of those entry-level deals, out of those rookie deals, to really help the value of it, because they've got a lot of money tied up in just a few players.
Are you surprised the players agreed to the CBA with the hard salary cap?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, I am, because I feel like like we said, there's opportunities now where I guess you're limited, and players are limited on who can get the big bucks now. With that being said, though, I think they saw that there had to be this hard cap, to keep things competitive. One of the best things about this game, and you've said it multiple times, is it's 14-team league. Anyone can win on any night. That parity is so important. The other thing as well is that we don't get into this where the top teams or the richest owners are able to just line the players' pockets and just buy the best teams. That's something that is not advantageous for anyone. And to be quite honest, it's not healthy for the league as well. So I think they saw that this is probably the best for the league going forward. So they agreed to the salary cap. It was something that the owners were very much in favor for. And I think the players saw that. I think there's, other ways, in the salary cap, that players can still get paid past what their salary is, if they're employees of the team, which we see all the time, that players, maybe they work in the front office. We see guys doing appearances, clinics, all that kind of stuff. So there is other ways that they can get paid on top of their salary as well, throughout that. But I think it was a must. I think it had to happen eventually, maybe a little bit earlier than I thought that we were getting to a salary cap at this point. But for long-term growth, for sustainability, I think it's a good thing for the league. And I respect that the players saw that as well.
This league is similar to the Canadian Football League as well. I wanted to ask you, what's the salary cap number for each team next year? And also, did the National Lacrosse League re-up with TSN for their TV deal?
So 2-part question. I'll answer the first one. I don't have it in front of me, what it is. It should be public knowledge, though, because it was in the CBA. So I believe it's out there, although contracts aren't public knowledge yet as well. And I know this CFL is pushing to get that contract information out there, have more transparency. I know some players don't agree with it. Some think that it's actually a good thing. Agents, maybe some like it, some don't, because it helps negotiate. Some of it doesn't. So I don't have it in front of me. I think, I can probably go back into my emails and some of my tweets and find it. But I do know, I believe right now there are 3 or 4 teams that are currently in the luxury tax right now that operate it. So there's going to be 3, or at least 3, maybe even 4 that will have to get under that for next year. And to answer your second part with TSN, no, currently there is not. This is the last year. They extended it after the 3 years that they signed. There was a 1-year opt-in, so we opted into that 4th year. So that's something right now that the league and TSN are discussing. I know there's other discussions about potential other streaming services in the States or other linear in the States as well. But, from my personal experience, from what I've heard from both sides, I mean, Brett Fruit even came onto my podcast with Teddy Jenner, and he said it himself. He would absolutely love to keep that relationship going with TSN. They've been unbelievable partners, and the numbers continue to grow each and every year. But at the same time, they have to explore other avenues to see what's best for them. But I think, in myself personally, and this is not just saying this as someone who works in the industry and is invested on both sides, I think what's best for the league is to still continue to be on linear television, to still have that exposure of a TSN, of a Sportsnet, CBC, whatever it may be, hopefully TSN. But Chris, like, this is a growing sport. This is a sport that needs more eyeballs. Going beyond a paywall where you have to go out of your way to find the game is not the best way to grow the game necessarily, in my opinion. It needs to be on the television, so when people are flipping through the TV, they come across it. Maybe they're out at a restaurant or a bar and it's out on the TV, on the screens. That's the best way to organically grow. And then when those fans become fans, then they maybe go to a streaming service, whatever it may be. So I think NLL Plus has been a great thing, especially here in Canada, that you can watch all the games for free. We'll see what happens with that next year. But all in all, from what I gather, I think that linear has to be a main strategy for the leagues. But I do understand the owners do want to also start making money here so we can start getting these players paid even more.
Yeah. The NLL Plus, I really like it, and I appreciate you telling me about it last year. But eventually, as a business, you can't keep giving it away for free. So I expect them next year. There will be like some kind of subscription involved with the NLL Plus. And also, I would like to see if they re-sign with TSN to maybe put the odd game on CTV, because not everybody has TSN. And I liked what the CFL has done the last couple years, where they put select games on CTV done by the TSN guys to give people in the border cities an opportunity to watch the CFL again. So if they do re-up with TSN, I'm hoping some way they can get some games on CTV network as well.
Wouldn't that be great? Like the game 1 of the NLL finals on CTV, even if it was like an afternoon, a 5:00 game, whatever it may be. It's a Friday night even. So like you're not competing against Hockey Night in Canada anymore. And I think that's a niche that they found with this TSN Friday nights deal, which has been outstanding. That has been great, not going up against Hockey Night in Canada, because as you know, in this country, hockey is still king. So on CTV, like a Toronto at Buffalo game on CTV, in my opinion, Chris, would be the best way to grow the game and showcase the game. The best rivalry in the sport, the best building and best fan base, and also like in arena atmosphere. There's a lot of great fan bases like Halifax, like Calgary, Colorado. There's a lot of great fan bases. But when it comes to an in-arena atmosphere, you can't beat Banditland. You just simply can't. So the fact that if you could get Toronto, their biggest rival, playing Buffalo in that building, almost a sellout, everyone wearing black, orange, and white, and you flip that game on, I don't know how you wouldn't become a fan instantly, Chris.
Pat, also, I want to bring this up too. I know the Bandits are on the radio. They're on WGR or 1520 The Bet. I know the Rock originally were on the Fan 590. It would be nice to get the games. I know live streaming is now the future, but it would be nice to see some of these games on traditional radio, like have the Toronto Rock games on CKOC 1150 AM. Since they brought that station back, it would be nice to see them on a radio station too for people in the car, because I've listened to John and Steve and Dave Buchanan on WGR and stuff like that, and they do a great job on the radio too.
Oh, fantastic. Those guys do an outstanding job. The fact that they're simulcasting for TV and radio, a lot of those broadcasts, or it's, when John's on the road for an away game, he's broadcasting just by himself. It's incredible what those guys do. I agree, especially like for Toronto and Hamilton, like getting a deal with a local Hamilton radio station, I think would be so big for growth in that market. Having one of the Durham radio stations here for Oshawa, the new team, I think would be fantastic. At least even if you just did for away games and, had someone traveling doing just the play-by-play. I know there was some talks potentially with Halifax. But what they did, which was great, is their games are on CTV2, which in like Atlantic. So you're able, if the Thunderbirds are on the road and you're living in, let's say, Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, and then the Halifax Thunderbirds are playing for the Vancouver Warriors, those games now are on CTV2, which I think is great. We see Buffalo have their games on, what is it? I forget, the CW network. They've had some games actually on Channel 5, the local, what is it? The NBC affiliate, or
I think it's WIVB Channel 4.
Channel 4. Yeah, exactly. And
WIVB,
and like here in Toronto, we can get that channel. Everyone in Western New York gets that channel. The exposure with that is huge as well. So I would love to see the league, these teams implementing more local television deals, implementing more radio deals, because yes, sure, Chris, does it cost more money to send a person out to do play-by-play on the radio on the road? Of course. But it's also an ad revenue stream because you can sell some marketing dollars there. You can, and then also internally, it's a return on investment. It's more eyeballs or more ears on the game. I think it's a no-brainer. We'll see if more teams do it, but I definitely think there's an avenue for a lot of these teams to take the Buffalo model and replicate in other markets.
I know the Oshawa Firewolves aren't having a great year, but do you feel long-term this franchise will be successful in Oshawa? And I just wanted your thoughts on Oshawa as a market, and maybe possibly I've been hearing some rumors that the Philadelphia Wings could be relocating possibly at the end of this year.
We'll start with Oshawa first. We'll start with the positive, then the negative. And I will say this, it has been a smashing success in Oshawa. Last week, attendance a little bit down, but as you know, Southern Ontario got smoked with a snowstorm. So I think a lot of people elected to stay home because I think the reported attendance still was like 4,800 or something like that, which isn't terrible in that arena. But just looking at the people that were there, it certainly didn't look like that. So I think it was tickets purchased, perhaps that they listed there. But I've been to two games as a fan, as a fan, just sitting in the seats. And then I've been there for 2 games as a broadcaster, and the atmosphere has been great, Chris. And I don't know if you've ever been out there for an Oshawa Generals game, but the building's fantastic. It's smaller. It's definitely one of the smaller buildings in the NLL, but they're adding, another, I think it's 1,100 seats in there in the next couple of years. So it's going to add a little more. You're going to get to that 7,000 mark. And if you could get close to selling out every single night with 7,000 fans, which I think they can, because outside of maybe 2 or 3 games this year, they've been pretty well at capacity. And yeah, I grew up in this area, Chris. You have so much history of the game of lacrosse. You have so many different communities within this community. You've got Whitby, which is one of the best, the hotbeds of lacrosse. Oshawa in itself as well, the historic Green Gills. You've got a budding area like where I live in Pickering and Ajax and East Scarborough. You've got not too far away the Toronto beaches. You drive north a little bit, you have Peterborough. You go out to Coalberg. That's a budding lacrosse community. People from Port Hope, like all of the surrounding areas, Chris, are supporting this team. That's what's the great thing about this. It's not just Oshawa. It's not just Whitby. The entire area has completely embraced this, and the team, the marketing staff, the ownership has done a really good job outreaching as well. Like I think last Thursday night, they had the Oshawa Firewolves mascot Alfie go up to a Peterborough Pete's game, and they were promoting the game that way. And they've done such a fantastic job of grabbing the local lacrosse community, but they've done even more. And it's the sports fan, the families, the young professionals that want to go out and have a good time. It's not just lacrosse community, which, as we know, it's growing and sure it's passionate, but you need more than just the lacrosse fan to support it. And they've done a really good job. I think it will be very, very successful. But Chris, as you know, winning sells and winning cures all. I think this year it's a honeymoon phase. There will be pressure on them next year to perform a little bit better. And I think those casual fans, if they do continue to lose, if next year is another losing season, well, I would expect to see maybe a little bit kind of fizzle off there. But their roster is too good, too young to not be like this. I think there needs to be some changes. I don't know if I think Glenn Clark is a phenomenal coach, a great general manager, a smart lacrosse mind. I think they have a great staff, but Chris, sometimes in sports, it's time for a change. And good coaches, good general managers, they get fired. You're almost hired to be fired in sports. And maybe it's just a time for a change, a new voice in that locker room. And if that's the case, I think Glenn Clark will get a job very quickly somewhere else in the league. I think they'd be crazy not to hire a guy like Glenn Clark. So maybe that's the change that needs to be, or maybe it's one of the top guys in that lineup. Maybe it just needs a little bit of a shakeup, and you bring in a different piece and a different look. I don't know what it is, Chris. I don't know if it's at the top or within the roster, but after these last 2 years, after what you and I saw with that Albany team, what they were able to do, making it to the final, it doesn't make sense to me how they haven't looked a semblance of what we saw them do in that year in Albany, where they lost 2 games to nothing to Buffalo.
What are your thoughts on the Philadelphia Wings?
Yes, the Wings, of course. Yeah. Yes. You know what? It stinks. And Steve did a fantastic job talking about the history and what he remembers about the Wings. I remember, the Philadelphia Wings coming into Air Canada Center and playing, the Toronto Rock, and they had a great lineup of American players, a lot of American players, very similar to the build and the makeup that they had. Tom Marechek, just to name one of the players, and Jake Berge. Like, these guys, they were great players, great, so much history, like even past from when I was born or playing lacrosse. Like this, they had the Philadelphia Wings were a team in the 70s before
70s, yes.
Yeah. Like they've been around for a long time, and there's a core fan base that it will be devastating to see them lose. I just think there's so much going on in Philadelphia, as you know.
5 teams.
Yeah, the building that they have is so busy. It's one of the busiest buildings in North America. So the time slots they get aren't great. Some days they're going up against the Philadelphia Eagles on a Sunday, morning game, or an afternoon game, I should say, or they have an afternoon game, and then the Flyers are, they're quickly getting kicked out of the arena, and the Flyers are coming on, or the 76ers are coming on. So I haven't heard an abundance of that makes me believe that Philly is going to stay at least where they are right now. There are some rumblings that maybe they could find someone within the greater Philadelphia area, somewhere close. Trenton, New Jersey has been somewhere that's been thrown. And when you look at just the history, I hope they find a way to keep it in that area so that core fan base that has been around for a long time can support at least there. But then there's got to be more. Like I said it earlier with Oshawa, like you need more than just the lacrosse fan. You need more than just what you've had. It has to grow, and it hasn't been able to grow where their ownership, and that's another unfortunate thing, obviously. Not the greatest ownership as it stands right now with Comcast, who they seem that they're ready to wipe their hands clean. So unless a local owner comes out of nowhere, I think there's going to be a move, whether it's, an hour or, 20, 30 minutes outside of Philadelphia. Maybe that's the move, or it's a completely different move, like has been rumored with Edmonton or Montreal. The only issue is, Chris, you look at that roster. They are loaded with Americans. I don't know if a lot of these guys are going to be willing to fly out to Edmonton on a Thursday afternoon with some of their other commitments that they have. So it's very, very interesting. It's still, I know we're almost near the end of the regular season. We are still really in the infancy stages of figuring out what's going to happen. But I mean, if there's going to be a new team somewhere, I think that decision has to be made sooner rather than later. We saw Oshawa with a late change, but I think that was a very fortunate situation where they were embraced very quickly and there hasn't been a drop off. But you need time to sell season tickets, Chris. You need time to get marketing out there. So I think a decision has to be done pretty soon here. I don't think it will, but I think you're also setting up your new market up for failure if you don't have that proper runway.
And what are your thoughts on Vegas? I know Vegas is 5-7. They're still in the hunt. They had a big win. I think they had a win this weekend over Rochester, but they had the lowest crowd there, 4,800. Do you feel long-term Vegas can be a successful lacrosse franchise? Because this league has had a number of teams move in the last couple of years, and it's not really a good look for the league having teams relocate on a regular basis.
No, it isn't a good look, but I will say they've done a really good job, and they were trending in the right directions. They just had about 6,000 fans the game previously against Oshawa. I think they had 5,000 against Philadelphia. I think their game against Toronto was their biggest crowd of the year, and it was, a sellout, 67,000, I want to say. Is that what that building can hold? And then their home opener was just over 5,000. So long-term sustainability, yes, I think so. They have Josai, who is obviously a very wealthy owner and owns multiple sports teams, owns 2 teams in this league. So he's obviously okay with having only 7,000 seats to sell. But I think you have, obviously this weekend, 4,500 is certainly not enough. It was a Sunday afternoon, go in Las Vegas, although they're in Henderson, so not on the Strip, which I think that change to Henderson has been good. You don't get as many tourists that come to the game anymore that maybe were in town and they say, hey, let's go see a lacrosse game, or, their partner, casino and hotel partner gives out free tickets for them to go watch a game. You don't get that anymore. You don't get the walk up, but what you do get is a lot of the local people in Henderson or outside of Las Vegas, they don't like going to the Strip. That's where all the tourists go. That's where people are visiting it. Maybe they'll go in to watch a show if one of their favorite bands or someone's, performing, or they get free tickets to something. But they don't really love driving in. Parking expensive, food's expensive. You're dealing with tourists. They are really happy that Henderson is here. And I do think that they're building a great community. The fact that it is a smaller building, if they can get to that, 6,000 to 7,000 average on a night, I think you're looking at this to be a success. And they are starting to win more games. Chris Kluche is having a phenomenal year. I think that was a fantastic ad. Mitch Jones was a great ad. Chase Fraser was an unbelievable ad. It's such as unfortunate he's injured. It sounds like he could be back for this playoff push. Sean Williams is doing a really good job as head coach and general manager, building that culture up. John Donville, Adam Patra in their second years with the team. I like what they're building. I think they need a better goalie. But I do think that Vegas can be sustainable. If you follow them on social media, Chris, they've got about half their team living in market, and they're doing so much community outreach, going to school programs. Right now, they're running a lacrosse camp at the arena with the pros, like with 5 or 6 guys teaching these kids. They do great stuff with the childhood cancer research hospital that's there. They are ingrained in it. And it's not going to just be overnight because this is a new sport. Lacrosse is growing in Nevada, but that's the field lacrosse game. So people are still learning and what the NLL is, what it's all about, but it's growing, it's gaining momentum. And I think this can be a sustainable market going forward.
Pat, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Halifax Thunderbirds. You're their analyst as well. And every year they've had good rosters, but they just can't put it together. And to me, I find besides Buffalo, who's now 7-6, I find Halifax is probably the most disappointing team in the NLL so far, 5-8. And I know they came close against the Rock, but it just never seems to be able to put it together.
Yeah, it has been a very frustrating year for Halifax. And I think when you look at kind of it in a larger lens, it becomes more frustrating considering in years past, at least in the regular season, this is a team that could score at will. Night after night, they're putting up 15, 16 goals. But, they can't get the goaltending and the defense. This year, they've struggled immensely. Like, I think up until 2 weeks ago, they had the lowest scoring offense in the NLL. A big reason of that is because Thomas Hogarth goes down in week 2. And I don't think enough people, similar to like the loss of Chris Kluche or the loss of Chase Fraser, just because he's not the big name in the number 1 righty or lefty, people just assume, okay, well, that's not a good enough excuse. But losing Hogarth was gigantic. I don't think Randy Stotts has been healthy. He's now on the injured reserve. I don't think he's been healthy because he hasn't looked much like himself at all. Clark Peterson's finally coming to life. They traded Dawson Theed in the middle of the season, kind of set a message to the team, and they haven't really found the balance of lefties. So the offense has been very, very disappointing, in my opinion. I've loved what the defense has done. Andrew Suter, the defensive coordinator, has done a really nice job, and Warren Hill has been phenomenal. He's been, if it wasn't for a historic season from Dobson and 2 great seasons from Christian Delbianco and Dylan Ward, I think we'd be talking about Warren Hill being up for goaltender of the year. I think he probably ends up on some people's ballots in the top 5, but there's just been so many other outstanding goalie performances, Chris. So, that is disappointing, but the good thing, and we've seen it, look at the Toronto Rock. They went from dead last to, now a team that's potentially hosting a home game. Halifax doesn't have 3 picks, 1, 2, 3 like Toronto had, but they have an opportunity. They've got 2 draft picks this year. They traded for Casey Wilson at the deadline, who on my big board at the draft, I had him as number 2 on my big board behind CJ Kirst who eventually got drafted first overall to the Toronto Rock. So I think there's an opportunity here, Chris, where they can turn things around. They also have Alex Marinier, who they drafted this year. He's still at school right now at the Ohio State University. So when he comes in, now you had him, you had 2 other pieces, and maybe if you can get a free agent or 2, I think they can turn it right around and get back to it. And similar to what we were talking about, maybe getting a little bit younger here isn't the worst thing for Halifax, because you said it, during the regular season, they've had these great seasons, but then when it comes to the playoffs, they kind of sputter. And we saw first round exit. Then finally last year, they beat Calgary in round 1. They play Saskatchewan. They don't look great in game 1. Game 2, they probably should have won. It was a miracle that Saskatchewan turned the ball over, were able to score and send it into overtime. Like, realistically, that probably should have gone 3 games, but I think Saskatchewan still was the better team. But I think last year they were a top 4 team. This year, certainly not. They're way better than what their record shows. I mean, you look at their losses, they've got, last game was a 1-goal loss. They lost 1 goal to Buffalo. They lost 1 goal to San Diego, lost 1 goal to Saskatchewan earlier in the year. Like, we're talking about at least 3 or 4 right there, 1-goal losses. 1 of those, 2 of those flipped the other way. We're talking about a completely different season. But I do think Cody Jamieson, this could probably be his last year. I think they need to retool that left side. They have one of the best right-sideds in the game. Their defense is phenomenal. If Warren Hill can replicate what he's done this year, I think it could be a quick turnaround for Halifax.
I see similarities between them and the Toronto Maple Leafs, and both teams have regressed badly this year. Now, they're both still in the playoff picture, the Leafs and Halifax, but Halifax has already played 13 games. They got 5 games left. Do you feel, Pat, for them to have any chance to get in the playoffs, they've got to win all 5 games? Or do you feel 4-1's good enough to get them in?
4-1 gets them in, but then I think they have to get lucky. Like it depends who else is there with tiebreakers. If they win all 5, I think you're safe and you're in. The only unfortunate thing, Chris, is when you look at the remaining schedule, it's at Georgia, it's at Philly, which could be a win, should be a win, against Rochester, who, I mean, they have been struggling. And then at Vancouver, which you could argue Vancouver is one of the best teams in the NLL right now. And then at home against an Ottawa team who is poised to make the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. And I'm not just talking about Ottawa, I'm talking about New York. And yes, you're right. Yeah. That is great. It's great to see Jeff T. And it's great to have that Canadian market in the playoffs. So I would say room for error is 1 loss, but fate's no longer in your hands. It's 1 loss, and hopefully you get a tiebreaker at 9-9. Maybe you can get in with 8. Like, I don't know, but like, I think minimum, not like if you get 9-9, you're probably safe. You're probably safe. But man, that game against Toronto, like up 2 goals, that's probably going to come back and bite them. But, I wouldn't say it's over yet, but the room for error is very, very slim, Chris.
You mentioned Rochester too. They got off to a good start, and then they're under 500. What are your thoughts on them firing their coaching staff, being in the playoff hunt, and bringing in intern head coach Randy Mearns?
It's crazy because we hardly see this in the game of lacrosse. A mid-season firing. It's very rare. It's something that we're not used to seeing. And like you said, this is a team that was 1 game below 500, a team that was still in playoff contention, but they obviously believed a new message had to be there and that they felt like they didn't want to waste this season and just let go Mike Hazen at the end of the year. I've said it already a couple of times now, but I think Mike Hazen's a great coach, but sometimes good coaches get fired. Sometimes it is time for a change, and it's a very bold move for Rochester. So I give kudos to that ownership group in Seneca Nation and Dan Carey for making that brash decision, bringing in Randy Mearns, who has never been on an NLL bench, but I mean the guy's watched a ton of lacrosse at the NLL level. He was a Buffalo Bandits analyst for many years. Was a player. He's also coached in the NCAA. So we know he's a great leader. We know he's an unbelievable motivator. He's a player's coach. So maybe that changes up the vibes in the locker room. But, it is a very bold decision for them to make. It's either going to work out really well or it could blow up in their face. It really could go either way. From Rochester, just their standpoint on them on the season. I came into this year saying, listen, I think they have one of the best offenses in the game. And, they have so many weapons with Connor Fields, last year's MVP, Ryan Smith, one of the best power forwards in the game, Ryan Lanchbury, an unbelievable playmaker, Thomas McCondy, who's really starting to come in. They bring in Zed Williams, who you saw a few years ago for Colorado when Buffalo lost in that championship. He was unbelievable. The defense and the goaltending has been their Achilles heel. Defensively, they're fast, they're athletic. I think they just have too much of the same ingredients. They don't have enough of those stay-at-home sound defenders, and their goaltending with Rylan Hartley and Riley Kotchcraft, they can't find consistency. The only time that this team wins games is when one of those goalies are standing on their heads. And if they have an off night, the offense has to score 15 or 16 goals, and that's just not sustainable long-term. So I think personally, I think it's a bit of a roster construction, which kind of has finally come to a head. And I think Dan Carey is going to have to address those this year, but I think maybe they weren't able to make enough changes this season that they said, listen, this is the best way for us to keep this season alive, because they believe that this is a championship pedigree team. I don't believe it is, Maybe they prove me wrong. Maybe Randy Mearns turns this group around and they get motivated and the defense starts playing better and Ryland Hartley starts playing like what we saw him play at the start of the year. Maybe that happens and I'll eat my crow here. But for me, I just don't see them as a championship team, and letting go a guy like Mike Hazen is bold. It's brash. But maybe it was time for change. And similar to what I was saying before, Chris, someone is going to offer Mike Hazen a coaching job next year. He's far too good of a coach to be sitting on his couch for too long.
The biggest surprises in the NLL this year, I find, are Ottawa and Georgia. Just quick thoughts on Ottawa and Georgia.
You've absolutely nailed that. I think Georgia, for me, is number one biggest surprise. I think a lot of people thought Ottawa would make this jump, and I think it's just because they have Jeff Teat, who is essentially the Connor McDavid of the NLL. But for me, it's Georgia. At the start of the year, Chris, I said, if Georgia has a hope of being a playoff team, they're going to have to score. Their defense, it's going to have to be on their defense. And if the offense can score maybe 10, 11 goals a game, maybe they're a 500 team and they squeak in the playoffs. They have exceeded expectations completely. And it's because of the play of Brett Dobson. He's been unbelievable. He is having a historic year, blowing away numbers for goaltending records. Like we're talking about, he's on pace, 7.70 goals against average, 84.5 save percentage. Like these are insane numbers for a lacrosse goalie, like just out of this world. He did have a little bit of a rough game against Vancouver. I hope that's just a blip on the radar for his sake and for this Georgia team's sake. But when you looked at their offense, they got Lyle Thompson, they got Shane Jackson, two great veterans, no doubt, Brian Cole. But like just looking at that on paper, I don't know about it. And then their defense is super young and athletic, but man, they've been playing great. This is just a team that I think has blown away expectations, Chris. And sometimes being young is a great thing because they don't know any better. Similar to what we saw from Albany a couple of years ago. I kind of said that they're like Albany, but from a defensive and goaltending standpoint. But maybe they're going to start coming back to life here after getting beaten by Vancouver. I hope not, because you're right, Chris. It's been one of the biggest surprises. And in my opinion, it's been one of the best stories of the season so far.
And Vancouver too. I should not forget to mention them. 10-4 this year. What's been some of the reasons for their success this year, Pat?
Well, they did fantastic in the offseason. Kurt Malosky finally went out and got some guys that he coached in Calgary when he won that championship back in 2019. Jesse King comes into the fold, a true playmaker, a leader of men. You get Curtis Dixon, one of the game's greatest goal scorers of all time. You add those two guys in the lineup, and your offense completely changes. It's completely different. They didn't really make too many changes on the back end. And in my opinion, they had one of the best defenses in the game. They have one of the best goaltenders in the game in Christian Delianko. They add in Shane Simpson, who adds a little more of a transition ability, scoring on the run. So I just think when you add Jesse King and Curtis Dixon, and Keegan Ball right now is playing on an MVP case. Like I think Brett Dobson is the front runner for MVP. As I mentioned, all his historic numbers, but Keegan Ball and Jeff Teat are probably tied 2A, 2B. He's been unbelievable. He with all the additions on that Vancouver team with those two guys, and the fact that there's that much talent on the floor and he's still able to be the quarterback. He's the guy, he's the go-to guy. If he needs to be a goal scorer that night, he'll be a goal scorer. If his shot's not singing, fine. He's going to be the distributor. He's been so outstanding. So I think him elevating his level, adding two other guys that have won championships, and then just another year of cohesion on that back door with a lot of great veterans, a lot of great defenders, some young youthfulness. And of course, Christian Delbianco, a full season. Let's not forget at the trade deadline, they went out and got him from Calgary. So a full season of Delbianco. It's just been a perfect storm for this Vancouver team to be a title contender. And you mentioned how great it is for Ottawa to be a playoff team. I think it's fantastic for the league, for Vancouver, not just to now be a playoff team, but to be a team vying for a championship.
hopefully the fans support the team too now that they're winning. Like you said, winning does help sell tickets.
Yeah, they've been averaging about, in and around 9 to 10,000. They've had a couple of games where they've opened up the upper bowl and they've looked at, I think it was like 12. I think they broke an attendance record this year. So they're getting the support in downtown Vancouver. People are coming out. And again, it's not just the casual or the lacrosse fan that are coming out. Now we're seeing young people in the party zone coming out to watch the game. We're seeing young families coming out to watch the game. We're seeing people that are just sports fans that, they're sick of seeing the Canucks lose. So now they have a real winner in the city and they're excited to see them. It's really, really exciting considering just the history of the lacrosse in that area, in that part of the country. But just, I think it's well-deserved. I got to give a lot of credit to people in that organization. It's long overdue. And it's a lot of fun to see this Warriors team as a championship contender.
And I know everyone talks about the Buffalo Bandits, that they're a dynasty. They won 3 in a row. But right now, Pat, there's probably 5 or maybe 6 teams that have a real chance of dethroning the Bandits. So people that are like, we're getting sick of the Bandits, well, there's at least 5 teams that all have a great opportunity to dethrone them. And I was going to mention Saskatchewan as well. They're 11-3. They're having quite the season too.
Yeah, they are a well-oiled machine, and they're a team that took a completely different approach than some of these teams, and they didn't do anything at the trade deadline, and they made maybe one move during the offseason, I guess 2 technically. They didn't re-sign Mike Triolo, who went to Buffalo and then eventually went to Georgia, and then they drafted Levi Virch, but Levi Virch has only played 3 games. This is a team that, took Buffalo to the brink, game 3. And after the first half, it looked like they were right in this thing. Second half opened up. Matt Vince slams the door. Josh Byrne and Dane Smith and Ian McKay take over the game, and the rest is history. But for Derek Keenan to not panic and make a brush change and say, we need to, we have to compete with the Bandits, or, we got to make a change. He said, you know what? We were so close. Another year with this group, that loss, that sting is going to motivate these guys, and we're going to get back to where we are. And they picked up exactly where they were. You mentioned the record. They lost their second game of the year to Ottawa, and it was really just like a bad 25-minute stretch that they had in that game. That kind of cost them. And then after that, they went on an 8 or 9 game winning streak. Then they lose to Buffalo in overtime and lose to Rochester in overtime in the same weekend, a nightmare weekend in Western New York for the Rush. But then they bounce back with a character victory against San Diego. And then now all of a sudden they're atop at 11-3. They feel the pressure of some of the other teams below them. But they know there's a target on their back, just like the Bandits are. I know the Bandits are still the defending champs, but the Saskatchewan team has a lot of people circling them as potential championship contenders. Their schedule isn't easy, though, Chris. They've got Toronto this weekend on the road. Then they go to Buffalo for that rematch. They're at home to Buffalo for that rematch, at home to Colorado, and then at home to Toronto. That is 4 very, very, very good lacrosse teams. It's unfortunate in some sense that I think that they have those 4 teams leading into playoffs, Chris. I'd argue on the other side, though, they're getting playoff lacrosse right now. Like they're going to be playing great teams leading into the playoffs. They're not going to be sleepwalking like we see sometimes with a first or a second place seed in other sports. And especially in the NLL, Chris, it's a one and done in round 1. You can't take that lightly. You can't. Nope. You got to play for a full 60. Look at what happened to the Bandits. Bandits almost lost to Georgia and got knocked out. It was an overtime game a couple of years ago. Like this is a team that you asked the Bandits, they said that Georgia game in that playoffs run was their hardest game that they faced. Was they came out slow, they took Georgia lightly, and they had to battle back. And they say that year that they beat Albany in the finals, that Georgia game was their toughest game. And I think Steve actually may have even mentioned that on your show the other night. So San Diego, oh man, they've got it tough over the next 4 games, but I think it's actually going to prep them even better for the playoffs.
Who would be your dark horse X factor going into the March to May? We haven't really brought up San Diego. Would that team be kind of a dark horse?
You know what, Chris? I'll be honest, I don't know if I think San Diego's got what it takes to be a championship contender. I just think they're very inconsistent offensively. I don't think that they quite have the firepower with their lefties. The defense is fine. Christian Regliari is actually starting to play really well in between the pipes. But for me, no, they're a team that maybe squeaks in. I had them missing the playoffs at the start of the year. I think they're going to be somewhere in that 8-9 spot. The dark horse for me, and I don't know if we can even really call them a dark horse, but I think it's the Toronto Rock. 8-5 right now. They got Nick Rose back. If he can stay healthy and if he can play like we know he can play, their offense is so athletic. Bringing in CJ Kirst and Owen Hiltz in the draft, Sam English on the back end in transition. Challen Rogers as a full-time forward now has been awesome to see him evolve into such a weapon. Their defense, they still and for the last 5-6 years has been one of the best defenses in the game. For me, Chris, it's about one thing for the Toronto Rock: avoiding Buffalo in the playoffs, because Buffalo has their number.
They just do not match up with the Bandits the last 5 years.
No, they really don't. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a mental aspect. I don't know because it's not just if it's Nick Rose in between the pipes or if it's Troy Holochuk. Man, the Bandits shooters just pick them apart, and they're able to dissect that defense, which other teams aren't able to do. And offensively, Matt Vince shuts the door, and Steve Priolo and Nick Weiss and Paul Dawson, those guys step up big time and shut down their superstars. It's crazy. And we've seen in games where Toronto's gone on runs, but when it gets late in games, it's like a boa constrictor. They just strangle them out. And it's really, really, to me, like if Toronto can somehow avoid Buffalo, I could see them getting to the final. So that'd be my dark horse. But I do feel like with Saskatchewan, Vancouver, Buffalo, and Colorado's faltered a little bit lately, Chris. I would say those four teams are kind of on their own platform right now of those four teams. And then there's a bit of a drop off with Toronto and Georgia and Ottawa. After that, a little bit of a drop off from there. But I think when you look at Saskatchewan, Vancouver, Buffalo for sure, and I think Colorado, we'll see if they can turn things around after a little bit of a shaky spell here. But I think those are the top four teams, and I would be shocked if we didn't see those four teams, in the Final Four.
Hey, Pat, do you have a couple more minutes for a couple more questions?
Sure.
Okay, Pat, I want to put you on the spot here. If you were the commissioner of the National Lacrosse League right now, what are a few rules that you would adjust and possibly change? And your thoughts on instant replay, because me and Steve talked about it last week, and Steve agreed with me. I said 60 seconds. If they can't make a decision after a minute, then just leave the call that stands. But I think you said something about at least 90 seconds or 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think 90 seconds review. That would be mine. So we'll stick on the theme with reviews. I'd change a few things about this review. One, I would say reviews for officials only have 90 seconds. And I would say maybe if we need to do this, that the officials have one time or one extension per game. So if it gets to 90 and let's say it's in the fourth quarter, they can use their extension, and then they can do that. So it doesn't kill the flow of the game. These reviews, I get it. They have the new system and it has helped speed up the process, but it kills the flow of the game. It kills the TV product. It kills what's happening in the arena. So I think I would love 60. I just don't think we'll see the league or the officials agree to that. So we'll say 90 seconds. And if they need an extension or maybe in the fourth quarter, it jumps up from 60 seconds to 90 or from 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Let's say that. So, but I would prefer it to just stick at the 90 seconds if there's a pushback from the league or the officials. Sticking with reviews, I would try to do something, Chris, like in the NHL. Whereas if you throw a challenge flag and you get the challenge wrong, that you then have to serve a 2-minute penalty for delay of game. Because then I think we would have less coaches throwing that challenge flag and be a little more selective when they throw that challenge flag. Because now all of a sudden, okay, if I lose this challenge, I might be putting myself on the penalty kill. So I think I would also add that in. The other rule that I would add in, and that's it for reviews. The other review that I would add in, Chris, would be, and Steve said the exact same thing, and I don't know if he came up with this or he heard it on my podcast, but I'm in the same mindset of him. The new crease rule that they have, when you block that shot, I would much prefer it, instead of it being a penalty for delay a game, just a 30-second reset. So once you're in the crease, if you block a shot in the crease, you now become a quote unquote goalie. So you're in that crease, you block the shot. It's the same thing as if Matt Vince makes that save. So that it's just a 30-second reset clock. I just think it makes it a lot easier for the officials to decide. It's not, because if a player runs through the crease right now, Chris, and they don't technically make an attempt to block the shot, they're not supposed to get a penalty. But we have seen so much discrepancy with some of the officials calling it as that, some not calling at it. Take away how controversial it is. And if it just becomes a 30-second reset, then I don't think we have as much outrage about it. I will say the officials have done a lot better of a job over the last couple of weeks implementing that new rule that they put in place. So those would probably be the major changes that I would have. And if I'm the commissioner, so it's not necessarily a rule change, but I know they have the unified standings, and it's been phenomenal for parity and for teams and fan bases getting to see at least once every 2 years a team. But having Toronto and Buffalo only play once this year is a crime. I think that each team, or maybe it's each team gets 2 rivals, and every single year you get 2 games against that rival team. So let's say for Toronto, every year they play Buffalo twice and they play Halifax twice. Halifax, their big rivals, we'll say it's Toronto and Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan, they get Calgary and Halifax. Some way to work out that these, and Buffalo could be, Buffalo has a ton of rivals, but it's probably Toronto and Rochester, let's say. That way we have these historic rivals still stay intact, and we still get the competitiveness, because yes, I know the reason why it's changed is because based upon where you finish, similar to what we see in the NFL. So if you finish in last, you get an easier schedule the next year. If you finish in first, you get a more difficult schedule. So that's why, because Toronto finished at the end of the standings, Buffalo was near the top. That's why they only played each other once this year. But losing out on having the opportunity to see more Buffalo-Toronto games, to see more Calgary-Saskatchewan games, more Vancouver-Calgary games, that to me is doing a disservice, not just to the current lacrosse fans, the current NLL fans. It's also limiting great marketing opportunities, because those are the best games. Those are the games we want on national TV. Those are the games that we want to get viral moments from and put them out on social media. So not necessarily a rule change, but a schedule change. I would love to see them implement.
Pat, as we wrap up the show, overall assessment on the newly renovated TD Coliseum in Hamilton, the home of the Toronto Rock, and is it still the catwalk to get to the bloody press box, or did they build an elevator that goes up to the press box?
As far as I know, no elevator to the press box yet. I don't know if the sneaky way still exists, though, Chris, because I do know walking through the stands, there's a back way that you can get in there. But yes, the catwalk is still the most convenient way, I guess, you can go if you don't know the sneaky way that you and I might know. But in terms of the arena, it is phenomenal. From a viewer standpoint, the vendors that are there now, the concourse is beautiful. They have a concourse now, for club seating. There's club seats where you can walk back behind where the seats are, and there's all these great concession stands. the sound apparently was outstanding at the start of the year, but they had some rock concert in town, and they blew one of the speakers. So I know the last couple of games, the sound hasn't been as great as it once was, but at the start of the year, apparently it was phenomenal. They've got all these nice new black seats that look very elevated and very nice, and kind of, and like it's dark where the seats are, but the field and the floor is light, and it kind of reminds me of like MSG, like what you see at Madison Square Garden, or the old it's crypto, what do they call
the crypto arena now?
Crypto arena, right?
Or Staples Center.
It's still Staples Center to me, Chris. I still call it Staples Center, but you know what I mean? Like it's that, and it kind of gives that cool feel like that. So they've done a phenomenal job. It's great. Apparently the locker room is really nice. So I've got to give them full credit. It really, really, really is nice. I hope more people start showing up to games. I still think the attendance could be better in Toronto. I think it will be better. Especially with a much better team. Once we lead into playoffs here, I think we're going to see more people heading to Hamilton, heading to Rock City to watch those games. And they did an awesome job. I, unfortunately, being a broadcaster for those games, don't get to have that game feel as a fan in the seats, get that full atmosphere. The press box did get a little bit of a facelift, so it is a little bit of a nicer press box now, which is nice. But I would love to go to a game as a fan, sit in those seats, grab myself one of the great chicken parm sandwiches that they have there that look phenomenal. Because like I said, it's great. And apparently it's a really good place to go watch a concert as well. So whether I see a rock game there this year or I go to a concert, whatever it may be, I got to get out there because it really is a nice venue.
Do you find that the Hamiltonians still are leery of supporting this team because it's got the Toronto name? I know we talked about it a few years ago, but do you think eventually maybe they need to change it to the Hamilton Rock?
I think there still is a sense of reluctancy, and we've seen others show up and give it a try, but I know for a fact there are still others who don't have any interest in supporting a team that has the name of Toronto. And I think it would be in their best interest to change. I don't think it is happening. So, so far it's been better than what I've expected and what you've expected, but I still think if it was Ontario or Hamilton, I think it could be even better. With that being said, Chris, I think another reason why the crowds haven't come back as quick, that year off going back, when the renovations going on, it really hurt. It really, really hurt because they were gaining such momentum. So I think there's a lot of people that haven't, had a chance to come back. Maybe they forgot they're there. Maybe they're, they lost interest, whatever it is. But I think a great playoff run here for Toronto could really, really do them wonders and get some people back in the seats. And I'm not saying it's been a failure. And I'm not saying that. I just know based off what we saw previous years, there'd be some nights where they get 10,000, 9,000 playoffs. I think they had 11,000. They're opening up the upper bowl. So we know it's possible in Hamilton. It just, we haven't got to it yet this season. And I think the few factors that we talked about are the real reasons why.
Pat, just thoughts on the TSN crew this year, and also tell our audience a little bit about your podcast with Teddy Jenner.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the broadcast crew has been phenomenal this year. I'm so proud to be a part of it. The actual crew itself, the production crew, led by Peter Buchanan, our lead producer, they all do a phenomenal job. The product that they put on, I truly believe you can put it up against, an NHL game that TSN does, a CFL game. And let's be honest, Chris, like a lot of the people that are in that truck are the same people doing CFL games. So it's a high caliber product, very talented people. And then people who are on the crew with me, it's been an absolute blast working with Matt Cullen again and Ashley Docking. I've worked with Ashley for many years. It's been great to have Mackie Jenner with us again as sideline reporter, but also as play-by-play for 2 games. And I think she is a budding star in the sports media world. She has done such a phenomenal job doing play-by-play, reporting. She's so well-rounded. She's done color before. The fact that she can do all 3 is so difficult. The West crew is phenomenal. Everyone obviously knows Teddy Jenner and myself are close. Brad Challoner, I think he's one of the best in the biz at breaking it down, and his knowledge and his vocabulary and his wit. He's so entertaining to watch. And then Chantel Shand, again, one of the best sideline reporters. She has her own flair, does a really good job interviewing, but her stories are great. She does a really good job making players comfortable. And so I think, the product itself this year has been outstanding. And if this happens to be the last year of TSN, it was one heck of a ride, but I'm confident that the league and TSN will come together, have some sort of deal, because I do truly believe that, this game has to be on linear TV to be discovered by the casual sports fan. As for the Off the Crossbar podcast, the OTCB podcast, it's a podcast that Teddy started, I believe, the first box lacrosse NLL podcast that was driven. It was just a solo show for him for many years. Then I think it was 4 years ago, maybe 3, I think, asked me to join on as his co-host, and it's been so much fun. We break down the league each and every week. The upcoming games usually is what we spend most of our time on. We have some great guests as well, usually players, coaches, other broadcasters, and reporters in the league. This past week, we had Randy Mearns on talking about his experience getting ready for his first game behind the bench for Rochester. Go back and listen to that. Watch it on YouTube or listen to Spotify, Apple Podcasts. A really good conversation. Obviously, some of the stuff will be out of date, but him talking about the experiences still very, very valid. So appreciate you. Let me give the time to kind of throw that out there. So if you're craving for some more box lacrosse content during the NLL season, just look us up, OTCB podcast, on all our social media, but then you can find us YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify.
How often do you record an episode?
It's once a week. Sometimes we have, like this year, I don't think we've missed one, but it's once a week. Usually, because Teddy and I are on the road so much, sometimes it's a Thursday night. Sometimes it's a Friday night, depending on when we can record. I can say this week, it will be a solo show. Teddy is on the road celebrating a anniversary with his partner. So him and her will be in Edmonton. So it'll be a solo show. Still working on a guest. I think I might even do a little bit of a live stream. We're still ironing out the details. So follow us at OTCB_podcast on Twitter. You'll get the details there when we decide if we go live, bring on a couple of guests and chop it up about the NLL.
And when is your next TSN broadcast?
Got a couple of weeks off because of March Madness. TSN obviously wall-to-wall coverage, which, hey, I don't mind a couple of weeks off, so I get to watch some March Madness. Your Michigan Wolverines, Chris, are looking pretty
Buffalo.
good this year. I know they're in Buffalo. I was debating on going to check out some of those games, but yeah, they've got a really good team this year. Disappointing loss in the conference championship, but I think they've got a really good team that can go the distance this year. But next game, April 4th in Buffalo. Speaking of Buffalo, it'll be the Bandits against Vancouver Warriors. Should be a juggernaut of a matchup. Be myself, Matt Cullen, and Ashley Docking on the call.
I had to make a personal decision about a year ago, and I'm just thankful the Buffalo Bandits organization and the NFL understand my reasons. So I'm hoping one day to get back there. I do miss Bandit land, but I had to make a personal choice for myself. But I'm just thankful I can still do my media coverage doing it remotely. Obviously, it's not the same as being there, but there's nothing better than being at the KeyBank Center. Everybody knows who I am now, and the organization's been first class to me. So I'm hoping one day at some point I can get back over there, because I really enjoy going over to do the games. And they have a great press box out there too at the KeyBank Center, except for the elevator. They only have one elevator getting up there. If you don't get that elevator, you got to go down the stairs.
Yeah, and it's a slow elevator. You might be waiting for a while. But yeah, Chris, you're totally right. Scott Loeffler of the Buffalo Bandits, he first class. What he is able to do with not just the on-floor product, the off-field product, the way he treats media, it's first class. So I'm not surprised you're still able to cover the team while you can't be there. I hope you can get back down because, Chris, I'll be honest, man, it felt weird not having our pregame chat before some of those games. And, you see all the familiar faces the Bud Baileys of the world, always, see him.
Yeah.
So hopefully you can get back down there, Chris. No pressure, obviously. I understand. So if not, keep watching on TSN, keep watching on NLL Plus. We appreciate you covering the league.
And I did finally get my Super Bowl 60 media pass this year too, which I
Awesome.
was shocked.
Awesome.
But unfortunately, I had to make a decision. Pat, thank you so much. And I told the NFL it's an honor, and I'm hoping one day I will be able to actually go to a Super Bowl again. Hopefully, it's just I had to make a decision without getting into politics, and it's a great sign, because to me that means my work's obviously good enough for them to get a Super Bowl media pass, because they don't give those media passes out like candy. And I would tell anyone watching this show too, any of the opportunities I've been given, I've had to go out and ask and earn my opportunity. So nothing's been given to me. And the national, whatever happens to me in the future, I'm always still going to be a supporter of the National Lacrosse League and the CFL, because those two leagues really give me an opportunity.
Absolutely, Chris. And again, I when I say congratulations, I know you're not going and you're choosing that, but just to get approved for that and get invited for that, that is quite the honor. You should really be proud of yourself, buddy. That's outstanding for all your hard work over the years to even just, get approved for that. That's amazing.
I want to just keep improving, keep growing, get better, and just reps. The more reps you do with things, you get not comfortable, but more confident.
100%. Yeah, it's great you said that, because when you're comfortable and complacent, that's not a great thing, but confidence is key. There's no doubt about it.
And as we wrap this show up, Pat, just thoughts on the World Classic Baseball. And I have to admit, I didn't like this tournament at the first, but I think Major League Baseball has hit a home run here with this tournament, and how competitive Canada has been lately too. Every game has been really pretty good.
Oh, I've loved it. I've been watching a lot of it. It's been getting me excited for MLB baseball. Obviously the Blue Jays. Maybe it's because the Toronto Maple Leafs aren't playing well. I'm watching more of it, but it's been awesome. It's been really good. A lot of really entertaining teams. Italy has been an unbelievable story. The Dominican Republic, I was rooting for them to beat USA, just with such a deadly lineup, like bats after bats after bats. That would have been really fun to see them. But Venezuela's got a very, very good team as well. I would love to see the rematch of Italy and USA, but I think the best chance to take down USA is Venezuela. So I'll say I'll be rooting for Venezuela to win tonight so they can take down the US in the final.
And hopefully they'll have this tournament in Toronto again. They did in 2009. So maybe in 3 years' time from now, the Rogers Center will be able to host it. And I haven't talked to you for a while, Pat. That 2025 World Series, obviously, I think the Jays should have won it. They were the better team. But that was one of the best World Series I've seen in a long time.
Unbelievable. And, was able to get to a lot of games because of my other work with Coolbet. And it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'll never forget being in those buildings for some of those games. Game 7 against Seattle, like just unbelievable. And to come up so close, just coming up short, it definitely was disappointing, but it's something that I'll never forget. And I think the Blue Jays are going to have a really good team again this year.
Absolutely. And being a Tigers fan, I still don't know if they have enough pitch or enough bats. They do have the pitching and the defense. I just don't know if they have the offensive firepower, because you got New York, Boston, obviously Seattle's going to be good. Toronto's going to be good. I do think the Tigers should win the AL Central, but we'll see what happens there as well. Hey, as we wrap up the show, Pat, it's been a while again. Thoughts on your Buffalo Bills firing Sean McDermott after 9 years, which shocked me. I did not see that coming, and replacing him with Joe Brady. And just quick thoughts on the Bills coaching change and some of their offseason free agent signings so far.
Well, Chris, I think if we had this conversation, which we have, but like if this move happened 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have been, not surprised and said, you know what? It's time for a change. But I thought last year the coaching job that Sean McDermott did with this roster probably was one of his best sample sizes ever. And I thought what he did with what the roster that he had, it actually was really strong. And Unfortunately, though, like we've said multiple times on this program, sometimes you need a change. I do think that eventually it probably was the time a few years ago. Doesn't matter if he was really good last year. Something had to be done. Bringing in Joe Brady, I feel like, you're having kind of a similar voice. So I wasn't entirely sold on it at first. The press conference was a disaster. But with that being said, what Brandon Beane's been able to do in free agency, I love, DJ Moore is a great pickup. I really actually like some of the things that they're doing here. Josh Allen restructuring his contract is massive because now they can go out and get other pieces. I think, their offense still needs to be improved. Their defense is improving, obviously, with some of those signings that we've seen. Chubb being one of them. If he can stay healthy, like their D line year after year has just underperformed, especially in big games. So they needed to really improve in that area. So I, at first, wasn't overly optimistic. I'm feeling a lot better now. I'm going to still come into this season with reasonable expectations, a team that should compete, a team that should make the playoffs, has the capabilities to go on the run, but I'm not calling them a Super Bowl contender until I see kind of what else this team rounds out. There still is some improvements that have to happen as well. But we also got to see what happens with this Joe Brady era.
And with the Eagles, I think Nick Sirianni is going to be on the hot seat this year too.
Sure.
The Eagles last year, their defense was great, but their offense was just awful the whole year. They just never got in a rhythm, and they fired their offensive coordinator, and then their offensive line coach quit on them. So I think the Eagles are one team and the Bills are another team to watch out for. But you got to credit Seattle, man. Seattle made the plays, and Sam Darnold did not turn the ball over once in the playoffs. So you got to give the Seattle Seahawks credit on their Super Bowl win as well. So we'll wait and see. And your Bills have a new stadium. Are you excited about going to that new stadium?
I am. I'm not excited about paying the prices that the tickets will probably cost. So I'll have to decide which game I do go to, but it's long overdue. Love the Ralph. Love the Rock Pile. It's great, but it seems
time.
like it's time for a change.
As we wrap up this show, Pat, it's a new segment on this show. It's called Ask the Host CDP a Question. Do you have a question before we wrap this up?
I do. And like I said, because I do watch this show and I watched Steve's episode most recently, I did think about this question. So as you know, I am an avid golfer. I love golf. So I've changed this because I know you're not a big golf fan. So I've changed this question because it's very common in golf. So if you had a reservation for dinner, you had 4 people. So you and 3 other people, could be anyone, of history, dead, alive, doesn't matter. You could invite these 3 people to sit down and have dinner and have a conversation with. Who would those 3 people be?
Steve Yzerman, Isaiah Thomas, and Alan Trammell.
Love it. Wow. That's you. That was quick. You had that quick. That's awesome.
And I've learned to think on my feet too, by the way. And I do prepare questions, but now I just ad-lib. And Eric Smith and Chuck Swirsky 5 years ago really gave me some good advice. And 678 shows later, and I still love doing this. And I'm just trying to build my brand and continue to get better at this every day.
Chris, well, I can tell you, man, from the first time I went on your show to now, you can see, how much more confident, how much smoother you are, and how much better you're getting at this. So, as I say, though, I've been at this broadcasting thing for a long time too. You can be proud of yourself. You can be happy with what you've done, but you always got to be worrying about getting better.
Absolutely. And Pat, as we wrap this up, can you just tell our audience about the latest with Coolbet Canada and how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. So Coolbet Canada, if you follow us on our socials at Coolbet Canada or go to coolbet.com, online sportsbook casino. Obviously right now with March Madness going to be super, super busy. So if you're interested, you can also hit me up at pgreggy on X or at pgreggy22 on Instagram, and I can give you more information about us.
And your next NLL broadcast is what, April 4th, Bandits and Warriors?
Yeah, Bandits and Warriors, April 4th, down in Bandit Land. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Please say hi to Bud Bailey for me. I miss his sarcasm and his humor and his knowledge, and also John Gerkler too. Some of the fans might not know about John. He's a great broadcaster, but he also is very funny too when you get to know him.
Oh, yes, he's the best. John and I, last time I was in Buffalo a few weeks ago, saw him at Cobblestone, and after a long game and a couple of beers, we had a really great chat. A lot of laughs. I love Johnny. He's the best.
And he was also the PA announcer for the Buffalo Bills back in the early 1990s. Actually, the late 90s. The late 90s, he was there.
Yep.
So
Yes,
a lot of people didn't know that. And to me, the Sabres loss is the Buffalo Bandits in the National Lacrosse League's gain. And I'm so happy he won that award last year too for Media Personality of the Year.
Long overdue. Was very happy for him.
Well, Pat, I want to say thank you so much for coming back on the show for 11th time and talking the National Lacrosse League with us. And I've had Brian Shanahan and yourself and Steve Bermel on and Adam Levy. So I have a number of you guys on, and I'm really appreciative of it. And I'm working on hopefully getting another Buffalo Bandit on this show. I had Taylor Dooley on a couple of months ago, and I think he's got a bright future in the National Lacrosse League as well.
He does. And I'm sure he didn't tell you, but I did coach Taylor Dooley in junior lacrosse for the Ironheads. So for a year, love Taylor, great kid, great lacrosse player. I agree. Bright future in the NLL for sure.
Did not know that, Pat, and that's what I love doing about this show. I always find out something new every time I speak to guests as well. So hopefully we can have you back on again, maybe towards the playoffs, because that's not that far away now.
Oh, it's going to be here before you know it.
All right, Pat. Well, thank you so much. Continue success and enjoy that baseball game, because as soon as I get off here, I'm going to be watching the World Baseball Classic tonight as well. So thank you so much, Pat, and we'll keep in touch on social media.
Awesome, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Very proud of you, man.
Well, thank you so much. And it's the guests that make a great show. I'm just the host, and my job is to make the guests feel comfortable and share their stories here.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Pat. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. That wraps up season 13, episode 18, overall 678, brought to you by our friends at Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership, located at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Automall. Check out their website, barrycullen.com. Before we wrap up the show, guys, the next Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by barrycullen.com, is going to be Tuesday, March 17th. Happy St. Paddy's Day at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 on the West Coast, with special guest friend of mine, Chris Spinelli. He's an actor, producer, and stand-up comedian out of Los Angeles. So make sure you tune in to Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show on St. Paddy's Day tomorrow night, Tuesday, March 17th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 on the West Coast, with Chris Spinelli, an actor, producer, and a stand-up comedian. And we'll talk a little sports with Chris Spinelli as well. And as we wrap up this show, guys, I do this with all my shows. And just bear with me 1 second. And Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Right now, the federal EV rebate is back. Get up to $5,000 off the purchase of your new Chevrolet EV. More details are available at Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership, located at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Automall, or give them a call at 519-824-0210. So again, the federal EV rebate is back. Get up to $5,000 off the purchase of your new Chevrolet EV. They have a great selection of EVs, along with Cadillacs and new and pre-owned GM vehicles as well. Before we wrap up the show, guys, I am going to play a little clip of an interview I did with Quinn Alexander. Quinn Alexander from Old Canadian Event. I interviewed him a couple weeks ago in Paris, Ontario, at the Winter Carnival Festival at the Paris Fairgrounds as well. And we're going to play this clip right now from my YouTube channel. Make sure you check out Chris Pame, Live with CDP Talk Show. Subscribe and like. And this is Quinn Alexander. Here live at the Paris Fairgrounds for the end of winter festival, and I have a gentleman here named Quinn from All Canadian Events. Quinn, can you tell us a little bit about this event going on here this weekend in Paris, Ontario?
All right, so we're up here at the Paris Fairgrounds, and we're actually doing a carnival-themed market here. So you can see we've got our nice little ice cream clown here, a few other little party favors and fortune-telling signs to the left here. We've got 100-plus vendors across 2 different rooms here. And, yeah, it's been a very, very successful turnout, numbers in the thousands. So it's always great to see for the first big event of the year. And, yeah, we're looking forward to our next major event, which is May 2-4 weekend here at Paris Fairgrounds for the Great Canadian Butter Tart Fest. It's entering its 11th season. And, yeah, we are on 17 years in business here. So, yeah, things are looking up at Ace. And please come on and check it out.
How much has this festival, the Butter Tart Festival, grown over the years?
Oh, it's just been massive. Every year it seems to grow exponentially. And, yeah, we're expecting, like I said, 10,000 plus people, I think, probably to turn out to the Great Canadian Butter Tart Fest this year. As it started out there, it was just, a small family team putting it all together. And, yeah, we've now grown and grown over the years, and expecting just a massive turnout on May 2-4 weekend there.
How many people are behind the scenes with All Canadian Events to put on these festivals?
You'd be surprised. In terms of the actual Ace team, there might be about a dozen of us, really. They all kind of work to put it together here, but that doesn't include our many, many great vendors here and all the people that work behind them, right? So when you're talking about 100-plus vendors here, each of them have 5, 6, 7, even up to 10 people behind them helping out behind the scenes. So, really it's hundreds of people that make this all come together at the end of the day there. But in terms of our team, it's pretty small, and everybody really does a lot to pull their weight.
Thoughts on the impact of internet and social media on these festivals?
Ironically, it's been a great thing for us, right? You'd think in-person events and the internet social media age might clash a little bit, but it's really helped with our reach, obviously, being able to get there. We have over 50,000 followers across our Facebook and Instagram pages. And really, it's just, I think people are looking for things like this, right? Ways to get away from the screens and get away from their phones a little bit and really come out and experience something authentic with the rest of their community. We get people from cities and towns all over the region, an hour, 2 hours away kind of thing to Paris. So I think overall it's been a really positive impact, and the two things can really work off of each other.
For those people watching our interview and they've got a product and they're interested in being a part of these festivals, how can they contact All Canadian Events?
So again, we're on social media on Instagram at allcanadianevents.ace. We're on Facebook at All Canadian Events, and you can also hit us up at allcanadianevents.com or allcanadianevents.ca. Either one will redirect you to the same site.
Can you tell us about your own night market, I believe?
Yeah, so we're going to have one in July, and then we're also going to have another one in late September, early October. I'm not sure if the date is solid yet, but again, it's more of a sort of young adult themed market. Maybe it's still for all ages, and we have entertainers for everyone from every walk of life. But yeah, it runs from 4 p.m. usually until 10 or 11 p.m. We get some really neat entertainers out. We have live bands, we have a fire breather, jugglers, entertainers of all sorts like that. So yeah, it really is just a really great time to come out and do something like that in the nighttime outside, because obviously most of these events get labeled during the day, right? They're kind of 11 to 3, 11 to 4. So really sort of flips that whole thing on its head and gets people out in the evening together.
And can you tell us about the food trucks here too?
Yeah, I believe we have 2 out there right now. So we've got the poutineery out there right now, which I believe Chris has told me he's just on his way to check out. So I've heard that's absolutely excellent. And who the other one was there, Chris? I actually I've been running around all day before the interview. I haven't been able to get outside myself there. I think it was something to do with pulled pork, if I remember correctly. So it should be it's been one of our busiest sections, actually. People running it out to go check out the food trucks out front there. So at the May Butter Tart Fest there, we're going to have probably closer to a dozen different food trucks, and you'll be able to check out our social media to see all the great people we're bringing in.
For those people that want to come out tomorrow on Sunday, March 8th, 11 to 3 here at the Paris Fairgrounds, how much are the tickets?
So it's $5 for everybody 10 and over. Children age 3 to 9 are $2. Children 2 and under are free. So you can bring out the whole family for less than $20 in some cases and really just come out. We got carnival games set up in a separate room. Everybody gets a free prize. We've got ring toss. We've got little dart boards and all sorts of things like that for the kids, of course, child friendly. And of course, still we've got the 100 great vendors between the 2 buildings to come on and check it out. So again, $5 for adults, $2 for 3 to 9, and children 2 and under are free.
Quinn, thank you so much for doing this. This was Quinn from All Canadian Events, and please check out the end of winter going on at the Paris Fairgrounds here in Paris, Ontario. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. Appreciate your time. Take care.
That was Quinn Alexander from All Canadian Events, and they got an upcoming Butter Tart Festival coming up in Paris at the Fairgrounds in May as well. So thanks to Quinn Alexander from All Canadian Events for that interview as well. As we wrap up this show, guys, I'm coming on almost 2 hours, but my guest, I want to say thank you to Pat Gregoire. I've known Pat for almost 7 years now, met him through Elite Sports Tour, and he's now been on my show 11 times. And Pat knows the National Lacrosse League as well as anybody. One of the good guys, and I really appreciate him coming on here tonight as well. As we wrap up this show, guys, Friday night, 8 o'clock at the Fergus Grand Theatre in Fergus, Ontario, 244 St. Andrew Street. FMJ. FMJ is Canada's only tribute band to Foreigner and Journey. If you're a fan of Foreigner and Journey, like I was in the 70s and 80s, they're going to be playing at the Fergus Grand Theatre at 244 St. Andrew Street in Fergus on Friday night, March 20th at 8 p.m. Tickets are only $65, and yours truly, CDP, will be there as freelance media, and I'm going to be interviewing Michael Pelletier. Yeah, I think that's how you say it. Pelletier. Michael Pelletier. I'm going to be interviewing him, and you can get your tickets at secure1.tickethub.com/TCW Fergus. So just click on, go on their website, FMJ, and they are advertising everywhere on social media. So you can get your tickets or call the Grand Theatre in Fergus, and $65. You can have a couple nights, I'm going to say this again, a couple hours of great music from this tribute band, FMJ, Canada's only tribute band to Foreigner and Journey, and they're going to be playing some of their greatest hits there. And I will be doing an interview with Michael Pelletier on Friday night before the concert. So check out the Fergus Grand Theatre this Friday night at 8 o'clock. And again, it's located at 244 St. Andrew Street, West Centre in Wellington, Ontario, which is in Fergus. And I am looking forward to this as well. And as we wrap up the show, I got a comment here. It's a bot, so nope, I'm not going to read that bot's comment. But I want to say thank you to Pat Gregoire from Coolbet Canada and National Lacrosse League analyst with TSN and the Halifax Thunderbirds for coming on. And thank you to Barry Cullen Chevrolet for being a part of this show. And thank you, everyone, the audience, for watching this show and listening to the show as well. Yes, I still do make mistakes here, but I really enjoy this show. And the only way you get better is to learn from your mistakes as well. And I just want to keep improving and evolving on here as well. And I'm looking forward to my show tomorrow night. St. Paddy's Day show, Tuesday, March 17th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 on the West Coast. Chris Spinelli, an actor, producer, and stand-up comedian, will be coming on, and we'll even talk a little sports with Chris too. And he is a comedian with Denny's at Night, along with Jay Hewitt. And I've known Chris Spinelli for over 5 years now, so I'm looking forward to that. And then Wednesday, March 18th at 4 o'clock, I have Mike Hogan on from the Toronto Argonauts. He's a longtime voice of the Argonauts, and he's also the manager of media communications for the Toronto Argonauts. And then this Thursday, March 19th, 2 p.m., Canadian media broadcasting legend Rod Black, a friend of mine too. He'll be on the show to talk about his latest book, his 40 years in Canadian media broadcasting, forward by Joe Carter and Jim Lang as well. And I'm really looking forward to that. So I've got 3 more great guests, 3 more great shows here. And I want to say thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to the show. And if you're a business and company and you're looking to advertise, check out Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. I'm on 21 platforms, both video, audio, and I'm on all social media platforms, including TikTok. And I can come into your business and promote your business as well in person as well. My prices are reasonable and fair. You can email me at cpalme19@gmail.com. And again, I hope everybody has a great evening. And if I don't talk to some of you tomorrow, happy St. Paddy's Day. And I got it mixed up. I thought it was today, but it's tomorrow. But anyways, thank you to Pat Gregoire and to everyone for watching and listening to the show. And we'll see you back here tomorrow night at 8 o'clock with special guest Chris Spinelli, brought to you by the folks at Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership. Have a good night, everybody.